This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, sex in the Islamic city. Backed by popular demand, Daniel Greenfield, the Shillman Fellow at the David Horowitz Freedom Center and the editor and writer of the blog The Point at frontpagemag.com. Daniel Greenfield, welcome back to the Glazov Gang.
Thank you for welcoming me back once more.
Daniel, you're an expert with us in many ways, but as our episodes ensue, you're becoming an expert on leftist sex and Islamic sex. Recently, we had a show with you that was fascinating on a leftist activist that was raped by a Muslim refugee, but mourned and was very sad when his rapist was deported. Thank you for that episode, and I hope all of our viewers caught that one. Daniel Greenfield, what did you think of that episode?
Well, I certainly found out quite a bit more than I wanted to.
Right. Well, Daniel, now we're back for another fascinating topic. You've written a blog recently at The Point. Muslim terrorists stayed, quote-unquote, single for the 72 virgins in paradise. You write about Ibrahim Bardaya, a 54-year-old single resident of Al Arub to the north of Hebron in Judea, was recently shot dead by security forces as he attempted to attack armed with an axe. The Imam of Bardaya Mosque, Abdallah Azam, told the Hamas paper Palestine that the terrorist merited to be a martyr and to marry virgins in paradise. Now, before we move on to what inspired this Muslim terrorist, give us the background to this pathology.
Well, it's when you go back to the days of Muhammad, when the merry bandit warlord was just running around attacking caravans, he had to recruit some of his men, and the way that he recruited his men was the way that all gangs recruit men. If you join me, you'll get all the loot you can grab, you'll get all the women you can grab, and the religious twist, the pseudo-religious twist that Muhammad came up with was the obvious concern of his men. Okay, so I go with you, Muhammad, I go rob this caravan, I go do it, and I get all this loot and all these women. But what happens if I die while robbing this caravan? What's going to happen? I'm not going to get any loot. I'm not going to get any women. So Muhammad told his men, you know what? If you die, you get even more loot and even more women in paradise. It's really that simple.
Okay, Daniel, just what I think about. I think about some guy coming up to me and going, okay, Jamie, listen, you can't have any intimacy or sex with women on this planet ever. However, here's a bomb. If you blow yourself up with it around those people over there, you're going to get to have sex with virgins in paradise. Daniel, from a scale of 1 to 100, how much I would take this seriously would be about -25. And I'd probably never talk to this person again or hang around with him. What's the IQ level of these people who believe in this? What's the mindset here?
This is not a rational culture in the first place. It's a culture where wish fulfillment, magical thinking are very commonplace. A lot of these people still believe that there are demons working around the corner and that people can be possessed by them. So this is not modern day America, and some of these people live in modern day America. They live in the 21st century. They live in San Bernardino, or they live in Jersey City, but they're not modern people in that sense. So their beliefs have nothing to do with reason, and they live in this kind of magical world. And in this kind of magical world, this makes sense. You've never found the right girl to settle down with. You're 54, so try to kill a bunch of Jews or Christians or any other non-Muslims, and you get 72 virgins in paradise. Allah said so. How can you argue with Allah?
Okay, so now we're narrowing in on this particular gentleman's case. You write in your blog, according to the terrorist's imam, like this is an imam, Azam, chose to be single and consciously did not marry, specifically because he wanted to die a terrorist and quote-unquote marry virgins in the afterlife. Bardaya's family members made similar statements to the paper. So your family members know this, even your spiritual leader knows this, that you are going to go die in a terrorist operation while killing other people.
And they all encourage this. They're all very supportive of this.
What do you think of even the family members? Like you would think that if one person has lost his mind, that the family members would kind of nudge you and say, hey, listen, this whole thing about virgins in paradise, it's not really working for you. How does it happen that even the spiritual leader and the entire family are in on this together?
It's a mainstream Islamic belief. So what are they going to say to them? There are no virgins in paradise? That's against Islam. They can't say that. Settle down, marry a nice woman, or 2 or 3 women, have a bunch of kids, forget about killing people again. Jihad is the fundamental concept of Islam. You can't tell him that to do that either. So his pathology had the support of his own culture and his own religion.
Yeah, and it's amazing. It's amazing that in all of our entertainment industry in Hollywood, all of our comedy in the West, that of all the people we ridicule and all the cultures we ridicule, somehow Islam and this particular belief system is not the target for almost any jokes anywhere, except in brave publications like The Point, at Front Page Magazine by a writer like Daniel Greenfield. What do you make of this silence of our comedians and of our entertainment industry on these dysfunctional pathologies in Islamic culture?
Some are just afraid. Just ask Molly Norris if you can find her. Or, Bosch, who came under fire in Garland, Texas. So there's justifiable fear of it, but also there's political correctness. This type of insanity can't be discussed. When this type of insanity does break into public consciousness, the way it did with ISIS, they start screaming, this is not Islam, this is some sort of nihilism, this is some sort of irrational behavior. It has absolutely nothing to do with Islam, even though it's the Islamic State. Mm-hmm. So they have to deny, because they absolutely cannot deal with the reality of this.
Absolutely. And, and they just, this Marxist interpretation of, oh, they're angry or they've been oppressed and they're part of the oppressed and the downtrodden. And we just need to give them an extra piece of cake and some land. But unfortunately, and as you talk about in your blog and many other of your writings, the sensual pleasures between believers and huri in paradise are also confirmed by the 2 Sahih collections of hadith, Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. So they're operating because of their belief in Islamic theology. Tell our viewers a bit about the huri. Am I pronouncing it right?
You're pronouncing it better than I was.
Okay, and tell us about these huris.
Well, there are all sorts of explanations, but the bottom line is either there's some sort of demonic supernatural creations, or in some cases, maybe they're women who are actually from hell, or, there's been the theory that it was mispronounced and it was actually 72 raisins, but that's not very realistic because they give fairly detailed descriptions of these companions in the afterlife, to put it euphemistically, right down to very detailed features and measurements. They have large eyes, their skin is sort of so transparent you can see their bone marrow, which apparently for a cult of death is extremely appealing. There's an exact cubit size, so these people are very certain of exactly what they want. Okay, well, exactly, because you write, because in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, I guess, this Ibrahim Bardaya just couldn't contain himself and went to kill these Israelis because these... Hold on, Jamie. Yes, that's quite correct. And they have an entire detailed set of measurements, the size of their eyes, the exact number of cubits they are. So they're very focused on that. They also like them to have skin that's so transparent you can see the bone marrow, because if you're a cult of death, you apparently really want to see the bones and the skeleton. Well, thank you, Daniel. Now, look, this is all in Islamic theology here, and it looks like Ibrahim Bardaya had to go kill some Israelis, as many as he could, because apparently this is just so appealing to him. As the collections of these hadith describe in Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, you relate that these virgins are so, quote-unquote, beautiful, pure, and transparent that, quote, the marrow of the bones of their legs will be seen through the bones and the flesh. What kind of arousal could this stimulate in men and in humans? Why
does there need to be the marrow of the bones of the legs? What does this say about this ideology, Daniel?
They seem very focused on the skeleton, the bones. There's a certain necrophiliac aspect to it. We're talking about a cult of death here, and they seem really focused on the physical embodiment of death. It's hard to deny that.
Yeah, so it's also very interesting. Okay, so these huris, and when you look at them, it's all about skeletons, among other things, but they're not really human, and many of them many of them are actually women who have gone to hell before, or it's a mixed issue.
Well, there are various interpretations. Apparently, one of them is that there are women who are actually in hell. So I guess for Muslim women, Muslim paradise is hell. It's sort of like an ISIS rape camp.
Right. So tell us about this then. So this particular terrorist is actually doing something very normal in Islamic culture by going out to kill non-Muslims, ideally dying in the battle, and then he gets these virgins in paradise, and he's denying himself this pleasure on earth. So this is the paradise for males. What happens to the paradise for females?
Well, apparently paradise for females is again hell for women unless they really enjoy a 54-year-old Muslim terrorist waiting on him hand and foot, because that seems to be the destiny here. And women are, of course, these women are expected to be basically inhuman. They don't use the bathroom, they don't have periods, they don't have any of the normal features of a human being. So they're some sort of ideal object, but not in any way a person.
But this is very interesting in terms of the demonization and dehumanization of women in Islam, period, that there is a misogyny in Islamic theology. So it's very telling and very significant that the temptation for these Muslim terrorists is a picture, a painting, an illustration of women in paradise, but that actually have no features of true women.
Islam has a great deal of fear of women. That makes more sense if you understand that Islam was sort of partially born out of a pagan religion where there were female goddesses. So there's a great deal of fear of women, a fear of femininity. You have the burqa, you have the hijab, you have the whole idea that women's hair sends out rays, that women can nullify prayer, Islamic prayer. So there's a great deal of fear of women. At the same time, there's this need to construct this kind of life without women. So the Muslim terrorist, he's celibate, he dies at 54, then he goes to have these imaginary women in paradise after killing a bunch of people. That's the ideal.
Right, and the description of the women, you know, instead of physical features that us as men could discuss that are beautiful and attractive, they're discussing the marrow of the bones.
Yeah, they're really, it's like this kind of medieval painting of these people in hell entangled with skeletons, except in Islam, that's not hell, that's paradise.
Daniel, why do you just said it, and you also said it in your blog, reiterate that. Why is Muslim heaven an ISIS rape camp?
Because again, the women there only exist to service men. That's the situation in the ISIS, where they just executed a few hundred women in Mosul because they refused to become so-called temporary wives to the fighters, which basically means concubines. So they have this kind of ideal Islamic society. The ideal Islamic society is one in which women are objects, is one in which women are slaves, and that's also Islamic paradise. It's a place where women are slaves.
Thank you, Daniel. So look, let's wrap up here. Daniel, the targets here, non-Muslims, but look, especially Jewish people and Christians. In this particular case, once again, terror inflicted on Israelis. Can you comment on this Jew hatred, on this Israel hatred, on this fierce anti-Semitism in Islam that we see surfacing perpetually?
Again, there's also some connection with the hatred of women, because Islam heavily rated Judaism and Christianity for material that they then baked into this kind of gang religion. So they have to destroy the Judaism, they have to destroy Christianity to prove that Islam is correct. As long as Judaism and Christianity exist, then there's always a question about Islam. It's like somebody steals something, he runs away with it, but he knows that the real owner is out there, and everybody else knows it, so he has to get rid of the original owner to prove that it's his, completely his.
Yeah, Daniel, look, and if we were to be honest, and you study this, I study this for years, we keep running across this, and even though we have some humor, we're joking around a little bit, this is deadly serious, and it's always in Islam: sex, denial of sex, hatred of women, death. Sex, denial of sex on earth, denial of pleasure on earth, dehumanization of women here, dehumanization of women in the Islamic paradise, but at the same time, some kind of mortared painting of them. Sex, death, killing. Can you comment on that a bit, just in terms of hatred of women, misogyny, and yet suicide? These seem to be very related themes and phenomena.
They are, and you can see them in totalitarian movements to a great degree. Orwell wrote in some detail about this in 1984. Islam is a culture of death. It is dedicated to the idea that life is worthless. Muslim terrorists will say that you love life, we love death. They are literally in love with death. They are obsessed with the idea of getting to this Islamic afterlife, because the world is a very terrible place. And you see this with totalitarian utopian movements, which are convinced that they can create paradise if they just kill enough people, if they just force enough people to do what they want. But no paradise is ever going to really properly compare. No Islamic state is ever going to be good enough. The only true Islamic state has to be found in death. So this becomes a culture of death. But at the same time, with women, that represents settling down, it represents a home, it represents a society here on earth, which is what Islam is opposed to. It's opposed to the idea of setting up a society here. It's opposed to the idea of the family. All the priorities have to be set up an Islamic state, conquer infidels, take more land, and eventually just die and go to this magic Islamic paradise, which will have all the perfection that it's impossible to create on earth.
And if you venerate death, you will definitely hate the human who can fertilize life.
Yes. Women are the embodiment of life, and this is a culture that rejects that idea very specifically. So the women in paradise are never going to get pregnant, they're never going to menstruate, they're never going to do any of the stuff that could actually create life. Instead, they'll just be there for the pleasure of the jihadist who has completely found his way to heaven or hell. The conventional idea of hell is the Islamic version of heaven, and this is his ideal life.
Daniel Greenfield, let's wrap it up under 30 seconds. In terms of your blog, Muslim terrorists stayed single for the 72 virgins in paradise. How would you conclude on this pathology in Islam?
It's a very dangerous thing. It's important for us to be aware of it, because we have this narrative put out by the media about radicalization. This is not about radicalization. This is about Islamization. This is what Islam is. This is what Islamic beliefs are. This is not just somebody watching a video on YouTube one day and becoming a radical. This is just somebody reading the Quran and reading the Hadiths and going to an Islamic lecture and discovering what his religion really believes about life and what about the world is.
Absolutely. Daniel Greenfield, thank you very much for joining the Glazov gang.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us once again. Please remember, the Glazov Gang is a fan-generated program. If you appreciate what we talk about, please go to jamieglazov.com and support the show. And please make sure that you and others are subscribed to the YouTube channel of the Glazov Gang. We'll see you on our next edition. Good night.
This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.